Hey guys, welcome to the Ramsey Paul Show. It is Tuesday, December 2nd. It's great to be here with you today. And I almost said tonight. Tonight, I do a stream. I have a private stream every Tuesday night. It's actually a roundtable, and we get on and we discuss whatever issues. It's a lot of fun. It's on my Substack. And here's the Substack in case you want to join. It's a lot of fun. I encourage you to do that. You get extra content, and it's a way to support me. So thank you to my Substack supporters. I look forward to see you tonight. And if you ever want to write me, I do like getting real life mail. I'm at Paul Ramsey, P.O. Box 8093, Fayetteville, Arkansas, 72703. You can see that in the description. And if you ever want to give a tip, Power Chat Live at Ramsey Paul. I do appreciate those. All right. The first story it just enrages me. I hate to see anyone harmed, but especially when it's little children or little girls, it just it just puts me in a different mode. And what we've seen happening in Sweden is a crime against humanity, and it was deliberate. It wasn't by accident. It wasn't because of global warming or who knows why. It was a targeted attack against the white Swedish people to terrorize them and their children. And they knew it. They knew it. So let me just show you the story here. And this isn't just happening in Sweden, it's throughout the West, but really, really sad. This girl right here, she's 9 years old, sweet little Swedish girl. She was, and if you see here now, she's in a wheelchair, she's brain damaged because what happened, her name was Luna. She was on her bike riding home, on her bicycle trying to ride home. And this savage, this piece of shit fucking savage that should have been left in Africa, this Ethiopian, Abushi Kamal. What the fuck is Abushi Kamal doing in Sweden? He should be running the jungles of Africa with a machete. But instead, they brought him into Sweden. He didn't get there by himself. Okay. He was brought in and he decided to attack this girl, strip her, beat her, rape her, and strangle her with her own shoelaces. And this guy has a whole history of doing this, right? This is the first time. And now the poor girl, she can't say anything except mama. And of course, he's in a psychiatric unit. If we had a just government, this guy would be convicted and set on fire. I support that. For the death penalty of this motherfucker should be set on fire. And all these people needed to be deported. And what happens, according to a survey, it's just not like a one-off. 2/3 of all convicted rapists are not Swedes. So in Sweden, 2/3 of the people that terrorize women aren't white Swedish men. And we see the statistics here. And in 1975, when Sweden, ABBA, it was almost 100% white nation, homogeneous. They didn't have colonies, very peaceful people, their unique culture. Rape was almost unknown. They had reported 421 rapes of the whole year in 1975. Now they've had 9,300 rapes in 2023. It's the highest per capita. And no offense to my black people that may be watching, they don't understand per capita. Sorry about that. But it's the highest per capita in Europe. And again, 2/3 of these rapists are either recent immigrants or the kids. So it's not like they're assimilating to Swedish culture. They're keeping their African values. Stockholm's murder rate is now 30 times that of London. And there were 124 bomb explosions in 2024. This is crazy. But they keep importing these people to attack these little girls like that. And again, this wasn't by accident or an act of God. This was something that was deliberately done. And let me just bring you up this. You've probably seen. I just want to show you this because I think it's very important. And this was years ago. This was predicted. And this Jewish lady named Barbara Specter, she's a Swede. Let's take a look. Listen to her here.
Resurgence of anti-Semitism, because at this point, in time. Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural.
All right. So this Jewish woman in Sweden is saying Sweden hasn't learned how to be multicultural. And that means importing all these Africans and Muslims into Sweden.
And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic.
Look at that little sneer she has. It's not going to be that monolithic
societies that they once were in the last century.
Who says? Who says? Why not? Who the fuck are you to say that the Swedes can't have their homeland anymore?
Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make.
And she's saying and she's Jewish, are going to be promoting this into Sweden.
They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
So unless we bring in all these savages to rape little girls, Europe won't survive. And that's Barbara Specter. Obviously, it's a famous video, but it's also something to note when she was asked about Israel. Should Israel go into multicultural mode and import all these Africans or Muslims? No, 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 not my homeland. And so she opposed that. But for Sweden, yes. And this is what I've talked about. Okay, I'm sure not all immigrants are bad, but I don't care. They don't belong in Sweden. They have their own countries. They need to fix their own countries. And it's not for us to determine which ones are going to rape and kill our children. That shouldn't be up to us. They need to figure that out on their own. And if they can't, well, whatever, let nature take its course. Our whole policy to Africa should be absolutely no contact, no food, nothing. Let them live in Africa, develop on their own or not, or Mother Nature will take care of it. It's a tragedy. We brought all these people in, and it's not even we. It's people like Barbara Specter brought them in. I doubt the average Swedish person said, "Oh, this is a good idea." And what we got to do, obviously, I've made this analogy before. If you have a house and all of a sudden you see a lot of rattlesnakes in your house, and again, I'm not against rattlesnakes; they're part of nature, but they don't belong in your house. They're dangerous. Maybe all are, but they're still dangerous. You don't want them in the house. So you got to get rid of the rattlesnakes. But you got to look, how do they get it in your house? How do the rattlesnakes get in your house? And if it's because someone has a backpack full of rattlesnakes and he's throwing rattlesnakes in your window, well, it's not good enough just get rid of the rattlesnakes. You got to get rid of the person that's dumping them in your house. And that's the analogy. What's happening in Europe and the West is the snake handler are people like Barbara Specter that are throwing these rattlesnakes into our home and killing our children. And so, because again, this piece of shit didn't just get into Sweden on his own volition. He was brought in by people like Barbara Specter. Those people need to be punished too. And until we punish those people and get them out of our society to try to subvert us and destroy our homelands or children, we won't be independent. So this is what has to happen. Number one. All right. So that was the first story. The second story concerns Russia and Ukraine. As you know, Trump has been working really hard to try to get a peace in Ukraine. And he said famously, once he's elected president, on day one, he will end the war. That hasn't happened. Just as a background of the war, you could say when it started in 2022 is when Russia invaded eastern Ukraine, but it really started back in 2014. In 2014, Soros and Victoria Nuland, working on behalf of Obama, they engineered a coup in Ukraine to overthrow the president. And at the time, the president was pro-Russian. Ukraine had good relations with Russia. The West and the neocons didn't want that. They have an ancient hatred to Russia and the Russian people. They see Russia as like backwards. They're not progressive enough. In fact, in Russia, promoting LGBTQ stuff is considered extremism. They do not tolerate that. So in Russia, they're not going to have drag queen story time hour in a little kid's class. That does not happen in Russia. If you did that in Russia, you're going to jail. Now, you can commit homosexual acts, but you better not promote that because Russians believe that's not healthy for society. And obviously, that's our top Western value. So the idea was Russia is a roadblock to the globalist vision of the future. So the plan was to do these color revolutions, they called them. That was a Soros term, where the CIA and the State Department and these NGOs would work to overthrow countries we don't like, and then put our person in, and then we'd have global homo. That was their idea, the global homo empire. And they did that in various countries, including Ukraine. So in 2014, the neocons, they overthrew the president, and then they put in someone more sympathetic towards the West, and then it led to Zelensky. And what happened is a lot of people in Ukraine are ethnically Russians, especially in the east. If you look on the map of Ukraine, on the east part of Ukraine, the majority of people are Russian. Now, they may have Ukrainian citizenship, but they speak Russian. They consider themselves Russian. When you get further to the west, they're mostly Ukrainian. So there was a big crackdown by Kiev on the Russians in what we call the Donbass, the eastern provinces. And they were trying to de-Russian those regions, meaning make speaking Russian illegal. They arrest the Russian Orthodoxy Church priests, the secret police in Ukraine arrested them, clamping down on that. And that sparked a civil war. And the people in the eastern provinces, what we call the Donbass, they fought. They said they wanted their independence from Ukraine because they don't have much in common with Ukraine. And that started a civil war in 2014. It was a very bloody war. And then eventually these provinces, they declared the independence, and they asked Russia to help them. So Russia invaded, and now they had a referendum, and the people in those regions voted to become part of Russia. So in the Donbass now, legally, according to Russia, is part of their territory. You could say that the vote was fraudulent, but they had a vote and they wanted to be out of it. So that's the reason for the war. And we've had a lot of propaganda in the war, how Russia's just a very primitive country. They have nukes, but they're just basically a gas station. They don't have anything else. They're not sophisticated. And the idea is that Russia would be quickly defeated and Putin would fall. And the idea was, okay, we'll put sanctions on Russia. And if there's sanctions on Russia, the Russians' economy would collapse soon. And then Putin would be ousted. And then it'd be another color revolution. We could put in another leader that promotes global homo. So we could have drag queen story time hour with little Russian kids. We could tell little Russian boys that they're trapped in the wrong body and they're really girls, the whole bit, castrate them like they do in the United States. That was the goal, but that didn't happen. What happened is the sanctions didn't really do much. In fact, Russia is a lot stronger than the propaganda led us to believe. We were lied. They have a lot of manufacturing. They have a lot of energy, but they have a lot of other materials and industry. And they have good trading partners with China, the biggest country in manufacturing in the world, and India. So Russia's not really isolated, even because of the sanctions. And the propaganda early on the war was Russia, oh, they're out of ammunition, they don't have missiles, the troops are having to fight with shovels, all these glorious Ukrainian victories. It was all propaganda and lies. And now Russia's been on the offensive for the past almost year, since the turn of this year. And now they've captured many key cities. And it's Ukraine that doesn't really have the weapons anymore, whereas the Russian manufacturing is just built up huge. Plus, they get a lot of weapons from North Korea, which has a big defense industry, and China, and Russia itself does. So Russia now, they have more military devices like drones, artillery shells, plus they have more men. And Ukraine, they're losing their men. They have a lot of people deserting. A lot of them fled the country. A lot of them are fighting bravely, but it's a lost cause. There's no way to deal with this situation. But Zelensky refuses to negotiate. And the Russians' demands are, we'll end the war, but the 4 regions in the east, we want them recognized as part of Russia. And oh, by the way, Ukraine has to remain neutral. They can't join NATO. That's their basic demands. Zelensky refuses that. As do a lot of the European leaders that are backing Zelensky, like Starmer in Europe, and UK, Macron in France, and Merz in Germany. They are just really locked into, no, we got to fight, no matter what. And if you just look at this logically and get your emotions out, not say, no, we can't reward the bad guys. Well, forget your emotion. Let's just look at this logically. There's basically a couple things that we can do at this point, right? A couple options. If we look at this logically, we could continue with the status quo where we continue to sell weapons to Ukraine and provide them intelligence information. With our satellites, we're able to give them targeting guidance and so forth, communications. And then again, we sell them weapons. The problem with that is the United States, we're not a manufacturing powerhouse anymore. And our weapon inventory, especially with like Patriot missiles, is running low. Plus, we have other demands with our war machine across the globe. Recently, now Venezuela, before that, Iran, and then there's always China, and God knows what else, right? Maybe Greenland, who knows, or Canada. There's always some war. So, and then our best little friends in the Middle East. And so there's just so many weapons to go around. And our stockpile is diminishing, and we don't have the manufacturing to replenish the weapons. Not compared to like Russia. Russia can outproduce us, so can China, so can North Korea. United States now, we used to be the big manufacturing powerhouse. Now our economy is basically based on like selling marijuana, gambling, and young girls engaged in OnlyFans prostitution. That's our economy. So we don't really have the ability anymore to give Ukraine a lot of weapons that would make a difference. Plus, Ukraine doesn't have the men. So Ukraine will lose. There's no path to victory. Even if we continue with the status quo, they'll lose. There'll be a lot more people die, but that's just the way it is. So that's option one, the status quo. Option two, and this is what I think Trump should do. Well, they're trying to do option two is, hey, Ukraine, understand this is a reality. I know you don't like it, but you're going to lose anyway. To maintain your country, come to agreement with Russia, give the eastern provinces to Russia, and make a promise you won't join NATO, you'll be neutral, then you can have your country. Then we can give you security guarantees. That's probably the best option you have now. It saves lives, and you may not like it. You can continue fighting, but you're going to end up there anyway. So that's the good thing. Now, the problem is Europe and Zelensky refuse that option. So the only other option, realistically, I guess you could say we go to war with Russia, World War III, but that's not really realistic. People don't want that. I don't even know if we'd win anymore, really. We have a lot of problems on our own. People don't want a war, American troops in Ukraine, another Vietnam or something. So that's out of the picture. So what Trump should do, and I've said this from the beginning, is Trump should force the issue with Zelensky and say, accept the deal or we're out of here. You can fight and the Brits can fight with you or whatever, even though they don't have an army. You guys go for it, but we're out, meaning we're not going to sell you weapons and we're not going to provide you intelligence data, and we're going to become friends with Russia and we'll trade with them. You do what you want. That is what should happen. And I think Trump wants that, but Trump right now flip-flops all the time, and he has got a lot of neocons on him that try to sabotage that. So earlier this week, the Ukrainians met with Witkoff, Rubio, and others in Miami to discuss their position. Supposedly the meeting didn't go well. I don't think the Ukrainians are compromising at all. And today, Witkoff is going to Moscow to try to give the proposal to the Russians. But the Russians are winning the war. They don't need a compromise. And any proposal that doesn't give them the four territories and doesn't have a provision to keep Ukraine out of NATO, the Russians already said we're not going to accept that. You're just wasting your time. So there's really no point for negotiations anymore because both sides aren't willing to move. So we should just wash our hands of this matter. That's what should happen. But I don't know if Trump will, but we'll see. All right. Some comments from Putin. Let's take a look at this here.
Thirdly, they have no peace agenda. They are warmongers.
Now, Putin's talking about Europe. I think Putin thinks that Trump wants peace, but the Europeans, again, they don't want peace. They want to destroy Russia because that's a key part of their global homo initiative is to overthrow Russia.
even when they are trying allegedly to introduce some changes, some adjustments to the President Trump's proposal. All these changes have only one goal in mind. They are aimed at blocking and putting to a halt this peace process. They are trying to make demands that are unacceptable for Russia, and they understand.
Yeah. So what happened when it became clear? Because you remember a few weeks ago, Russia, he was a fool. He believed the Ukrainians and the Europeans that Ukraine was winning. And so Russia did that True Social post. Wow, it sounds like they're winning. Great for Ukraine. It turned out that was bullshit. Ukraine's losing badly. In a couple of weeks, all these towns started to fall, and the defense lines of Ukraine are crumbling. And so there was a panic. So Trump sent Woodcock to Putin to say, hey, what do you want for a proposal? They came up with like a 28-point peace plan, which meant bringing these eastern territories into Russia, preventing Ukraine from joining NATO, and some other things, quit, arresting priests in Ukraine that are Russian, that type of thing. So there's 28 points. And so we gave the 28-point peace plan to the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians have rejected it. And they want to make changes.
Stand this, and then later they would try to blame Russia, accuse Russia of stopping this peace process. This is their objectives. And we can clearly see that. That's why, well, if they want to go back to the reality, considering the reality on the ground, then they are welcome.
What he's talking about, the reality on the ground, because, war is just another form of diplomacy, and Russia's winning on the ground. And so Russia's position is, we don't have to accept this deal. This is what we want. These 4 territories, we're going to get one way or the other. And we could do it via peace deal, and that stop the killing. If you don't want the peace deal, Europeans, okay, we'll just get it through combat. And we're winning in combat, and there's not shit you can do. You can try more sanctions. It doesn't make any difference. Rubio has already said sanctions don't work anymore. We already have maximum sanctions on Russia. It doesn't work because Russia is self-contained economy. Plus, they are still trading with half the world, like China and India. They don't need the United States or France or Britain. And so that's the problem. And then the other problem, again, we just don't have the weapons anymore to give to Ukraine, enough to make a difference. Plus, we don't have the men. So Russia's their position is pretty clear. It's like, okay, we can have a peace agreement, but if you don't want a peace agreement, well, that's okay. It's going to cost more lives, but we're still going to get what we want. We don't really care. It's up to you. So this is what they want. And one more thing from Putin, he was talking about how they are actually trying to stir a war here with Russia.
I've said that 100 times. We have no plans of fighting against Europe. But if Europe wants to...
Yeah, this was some meme that's ridiculous, that Putin just went crazy one day and he wants to take all over Europe, just like Hitler. You remember that? It's just nuts. First of all, Hitler didn't want to take over all of Europe. That was bullshit. Hitler never even wanted to fight with France or Britain. They declared war on Germany. Now Russia was a different thing. But they're saying that Putin wants to like take over the world or something. It's like, no, it's the eastern provinces, which have a history. They're ethnically Russian. But to try to scare the populace, if we don't stop Putin in Ukraine, he's going to take over Britain, or Sweden, which would probably be an improvement. It'd be an improvement for the Swedes if Russia took over Sweden and kicked out the immigrants that are attacking their children. It'd probably be an improvement. But sadly, that's not what Russia wants. They have no plans for that. They don't desire that. They're just looking for Eastern Ukraine.
Fight, and if they start this fight, then we are ready right now. There is no doubt about this. But
yeah, I mean, Russia has the largest army in Europe, and the second largest was Ukraine, and that's being destroyed. What, you think the French are going to fight, or the British, or the Germans? They're weak. They're weak. They're like cocks. I mean, their military's full of gays and women. They don't have much of a military, and they don't have much manufacturing anymore because of green energy. They're screwed. And so there's nothing they can do. They're not going to fight a war with Russia.
The only question is if Europe starts the war, unleashes this war, because that's not Ukraine. With Ukraine, we use some surgical means. We are trying to be really careful because you understand why. This is not a
What Putin is saying here is they don't call it a war in Ukraine. They call it a special military operation. And the reason is they consider Ukraine to be historically connected to Russians. And again, there's a lot of Russians in Ukraine. Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union. In ancient Russia, Ukraine was part of Russia. It was like the borderlands. So there's a lot of history there. So it's not like they hate the Ukrainian people or the people there. They consider those people their brothers.
war in the direct sense of the word. And Europe, all of a sudden, wants to start a war. And if it does start a war, then very rapidly there might be a situation where we have no one to negotiate with.
So Putin's saying, hey, we don't want a war, but if Europe is insisting on a war, we'll give it to them. And again, Europe is not in the position to have a war. All right. Let's see another story here. This came out of from Ann Coulter retweeted this, and this has to do with. It really angers me of what has happened over the years, and did Trump end this discrimination against white American men? This is a SEA. This is the Small Business Administration, and what they would do is they would give loans to people based on your race or sex. And what it meant in practice is if you're a white man, you do not qualify for small business loans. And if you ever wonder why, like all these gas stations, 7-Elevens and stuff are like mostly Indians or immigrants, and why if you go to a motel, like on a road trip, they're always owned by Indians or migrants, not white people, is because white people have been excluded on a racial basis from these loans. It's ridiculous. This is a war on our people, but this needs to end right away. And all those businesses that are controlled, but that were provided with these small business loans, we got to take them back. We got to send those people back to India or whatever. And then we got to reissue it to people in our country. It's outrageous, but this is definitely what has happened. And that is crazy here. And let's see here. What time here? Yeah, we have time for one more story. And this has to do with H-1B visas. And DeSantis, and I think DeSantis is eyeing trying to run for president in 2028. He is looking to get rid of the H-1B program, which was created in 1990. So all these people, oh, America was created by H-1B Indians. Like, no, it didn't exist till 1990. And it was always a lie. The reason for H-1B supposedly was, oh, we're in a tech boom and we don't have enough of our kids that are trained in computer sciences and stuff. So just temporarily, we got to breed in these H-1B visas from India. And then once we get our kids trained, they will take the job. That was a lie. It was just to bring in low-cost labor. The Indians aren't better programmers than Americans. I worked in the industry. They're worse. The Indian culture is just based on fraud. I mean, the resumes are lies. It's a lot of nepotism. This is how they work. It's a nightmare to work with them. And it's not the situation, because Trump is such a boomer. He seems to think that somehow, oh, well, you know, the H-1B people come over and train Americans and they go home. No, it's the other way around. What happens is, and DeSantis cited this in 2015 Disney layoffs in Florida, where the IT staff train H-1B workers from an Indian firm, and they have to train them. Otherwise, you don't get your severance. So what happens is you've been loyal, you're a good American, you do everything right, go to college, you get a good IT job, you're productive, And all of a sudden, this fucking Disney says, no, we're going to get rid of you with Indians because they're cheaper. So we're going to bring in all these people. And they don't know shit. So you have to train them. And if you don't train, and once you train them, we're going to fire you. And if you don't train them, you're not going to get your severance. And this has been repeated over and over and over. It's a scam. The whole thing needs to end. And we don't need changes in the H-1B program. We need to eliminate it. Let's take a quick look at this video when they're talking about this.
Frame or look at the risk of losing talent to other maybe adversarial countries?
Well, we built this country as the #1 in the nation based on white people. We didn't need Indians. We didn't need people from Bangladesh. And by the way, if Indians are so superior, why is their country a literal shithole? Literal shit on the streets. Why is it? Why don't they shouldn't their country be the powerhouse, #1 in technology, and we're far behind? They don't want to stay there. They want to come to our country. So fuck off with that narrative.
Well, look, if the program was put back into its original frame and you had 65,000 people coming in, that's an awful lot of talent, right?
Well, first of all, they're not talent. Again, these people have to be trained. Their degrees are usually bullshit, extreme fraud. I mean, fraud, I get it. All cultures are some fraud, but that's the norm in India. That's the norm, not the exception.
If you're talking about the people who create our top companies, the top AI researchers, the Elon Musks, the Sergey Brins, the Pierre Omidyars, whatever, that's like a couple hundred people. We're not talking about 400,000 people, which is the number of H-1Bs that were either issued or renewed.
400,000.
Or look at the.
So we need to get rid of the program, and it shouldn't be reformed. It's ridiculous. We did fine without H-1Bs. We don't have a shortage of workers. We have plenty of young, smart, young Americans that can do the job. I guarantee you a lot better than Indians. Plus, then when the Americans do the job, you can understand what they fucking say. You don't have to call a call center and say, what are you saying? Well, I can't understand you. I am so irritated with that anymore. I just say, I don't understand what the fuck you're saying. I guess you're speaking English, but I can't understand it. So that's another benefit. So we need to end the H-1B visas, and hopefully Trump, well, he's not going to be running again, but hopefully J.D. Vance or DeSantis, whoever runs for the Republicans, understands we need to end this program. All right, guys, it's been a good show today. And again, tonight we have a roundtable. Thank you for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe, share this with your friends. Talk to you guys later.